the psychedelics are surprisingly slippery in the hands of the managers of dominator institutions. I have asked this question because I'm concerned about it, of the voice in the mushroom. The question being, what if these things fall into the hands of people who are not well-intended? And I can only tell you what the mushroom said. It's not entirely satisfying to me as a paranoid rationalist. But what it said was, this is not your concern. These things are of the good. And the good, the light cannot be corrupted by the darkness. The darkness passes right through it. It's as though it didn't even exist. And I think there's truth to that. People are always asking me, why is it that I'm not dragged away kicking and screaming? It's because it's utterly unimportant what I'm doing from the point of view of anybody in any position of authority. We are all labeled flakes. We are all seriously deluded people, but as long as we remain less than 5% of the total population, there's no problem. You know, I mean, democracy is very tolerant. It tolerates all kinds of cults, belief systems, sexual orientations, and so forth. As long as we don't threaten the power structure in ways that it can recognize. The states of mind that I'm interested in that come out of these shamanic plants are so radically different from ordinary states of consciousness that I wouldn't care to access them except through the technology of the plants. And I often get asked this question, are there other ways to do it? Certainly claims abound. You know, and you meet people who say, I don't need drugs. I'm seeing little dancing mice when I close my eyes. Congratulations. But I've never been entirely convinced. You know, it's really hard to convince yourself that we're all talking about the same thing. That's why I perhaps rattle on more than I should. I've had the unsettling experience of, and I won't use any names, but meeting someone who had done research on psychedelics for 20 years, had given it to over 500 people, who had taken it over 150 times. And I said, we discussed the possibility that they were professionals, so they had always had off-the-shelf chemicals. And I said, well, you should try fresh mushrooms and see if you think there's a difference. I had no idea. And so we have to keep leaning on each other. We have to keep comparing notes and make sure we're talking about the same thing. We're not talking about, on the way to the mystery, along the way to the mystery lie the realms of loving everybody, moving fields of geometric color, past lives, you name it. But these are just milestones on the way. When you finally get to the thing, the way you will know that you've arrived is that you will be struck dumb with wonder. That you will say, my God, this is impossible. This is inherently impossible. This is what impossible was invented to talk about. This cannot be. And it's then we're in the ballpark. You know, then we're in the presence of the true coincidentia oppositorum. There are all kinds of drugs and techniques and hot water and massage and this and that and vitamin therapy that moves you all over the map, makes you feel all kinds of different ways. And, you know, you see people experience all kinds of personal breakthroughs under massage and rebirthing and all these things. But I don't think that's what we're talking about. I think we're talking about something profoundly other, that it is very hard to get this thing out into the mainstream because literally words fail us. It is a translinguistic object. It is if a flying saucer were to land in Central Park tomorrow, it would be not as mysterious and challenging to our conception of ourselves as this psychological state is, which lies at the center of all this shamanic dancing around and probing. There is something profoundly bizarre, accessible to us here and now. And it's a complete puzzle to me why there is so little talk about it. We live in a society completely obsessed with sensation. You know, people shoot cocaine, jump out of airplanes, go on tiny rafts across the Pacific, cross the North Pole on a roller skate, whatever it is. And yet, all in the name of adventure. Well, you know, by God, if you want adventure, there's adventure out there. There's adventure that will sink you to your knees with tears of joy streaming down your face. It isn't far away. It isn't for people you never heard of, or universities, or you don't need a lot of funding. You don't have to be a professional. All of this stuff. I mean, everybody talks about the mystery within and how it's all right here, but I don't think people realize how literal all this stuff is. The world is not only stranger than we suppose, it's stranger than we can suppose. The weirdest, wildest, most bizarre, unearthly thing you can imagine in your most demented state of fantasy falls far short of the beginnings of the truth. The advice is pretty straightforward and simple. First of all, obviously, you have to have an intent to use it properly for spiritual growth and self-exploration. I think that goes without saying in talking to a group like this. But then the practical and operational question is, how do you do it? Well, here's how you do it. You take it on an empty stomach, in silent darkness, in a place where you are comfortable. Now, people don't like this advice. It's very simple advice. And the number of people who will come to me and say, I remember what you said, but I took it at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I wanted to listen to Mozart, and there were people moving around in the house. Forget Mozart. You know, Mozart is great without the adjunct of these things. Mozart can stand on his own. My notion of what you're trying to do when you take one of these things is you want to see the quintessence of what it is. You want to see what it is. So put darkness behind it so that everything you see is only it. Put silence behind it so that everything you hear is only it. And then pay attention and sit still. And that's all there is to it. Sit and watch the back of your closed eyelids with the expectation of seeing something. I mean, you've all meditated. Well, God, that's the most boring thing on earth. This is exactly like that. This is exactly like meditation, except instead of that dark ochre background that settles in with the little phosphenes floating by, instead of that is a Niagara of transcendental imagery. So I would say that meditation is a great model for it. You know, sit down, shut up, breathe deeply, and look with attention at the back of your closed eyelids. And I guarantee you, it will come. It will manifest.